Hi everyone, it's Anastasia Grace from anastasiagrace.com, and I have Cairo here. He's an amazing man, and he changes lives. He's a coach, executive coach. From what I know, you do everything like business and life coaching, and pretty much like putting people on their path. Is that right, Cairo?
Yeah, I mean, I might describe it a little differently.
Yep.
But
How would you say?
essentially, yes, I work with people in relation. Well, what I do is something called creator coaching, and the central tenets of it is that as we be, so we have. So you look at the word behave, and you'll see that it says be and have. These two words are inside of it. So we focus on who one is being. That is a core part of it. The whole process of coaching in the interior kind of aspect of it is about awakening awareness, facilitating release, and then consciously creating into that space. But then, yeah, me personally, I work with a broad range of people from, originally I started as a couples coach. I didn't ask to be a coach, but someone said, you need to talk to Cairo. I got put together with a couple, and that kind of led from one thing to another. These days, I tend to work with what we could call conscious entrepreneurs. So people who are seeking to live life in a good way, bring their good work out into the world in a way that works well for them and amplifies their ability to succeed in relation to what they want to make happen there, whilst also supporting them to be happy in the other areas of their life, because we know there is a lot of people out there who are successful but not satisfied. So yeah, essentially it's called creator coaching, what I do, and it's about living, seizing, honoring, loving your creative potential. And yeah, that is at
That's
least
kind of short
somewhat of a
summary,
summary.
short summary of it. That's incredible because, well, you are an amazing like person to speak to about men and what is it like to be a man in the modern world, in the modern society, because that's what my conversations are about. I interview men to ask a range of questions to get a little bit into the world of a man, and obviously you're working with awareness and you're working with conscious entrepreneurs, so it's a new way of being in the world. So that would be very, very interesting for me to explore and to learn and to find out what are those men all about, and how is it like, what are you as a man. And just before we started, Cairo asked me about why am I doing it. So I would just share a little bit. Why is it I am having these conversations? Basically, what's in it for me? And to put it simply, is I have an incredible respect and awe for men and understanding, and also I see myself how I was before and how I am now. And also I see how much of mistakes I have done in my past, with not understanding, not seeing the beauty, and not understanding men. Like, you probably have heard it multiple times when women share about, like, oh, men are very simple. They just like, men are so easy. You just gotta feed them, and they just want like food and sex, and that's about it. Or you can hear so many misconceptions about, like, men are detached from their feelings. They don't feel anything. They don't care about anything. There's a lot of misconceptions especially from women, and all women are confused about men, because we all have been hurt. We all went through like our stages of our hearts being broken, or growing up with a father who hasn't been maybe the best role model for the masculine. But since I have started working with men and women and couples as a practitioner, as a healer, as a mentor, I can see what's underneath. I can see what's inside. And inside, there's always like a beautiful human being. There's always love. There's always it's like deep, deep, deep. Sometimes really deep hurt, sometimes really like deep heartbreak, sometimes really had deep experiences that shaped us. So I would like to show the world different men, and the men that I know in my life are very incredible creatures that are just making so many beautiful changes in the world and putting themselves out there to make this world a better, more beautiful, more loving, more expanded place. And I know Cairo is just like that, one of those people, because I had a few coaching session with him, and it's like he's got the most amazing huge heart. So I want to show the beauty of men to women, so we can start seeing the beauty, and this way we can attract the beauty, and this way we can create the beauty. If we keep seeing the world through hurt, upset, anger, anxiety, worry, that's what we'll be shaping around ourselves. So my first question to you, Cairo, would be, what is great about being a man?
Well, let me start from the premise that there is more that unites us as men and women than separates us. There is much more that we share in terms of our common experience of life. So I could just as easily turn this question around and say, what is great about being human? Being a man is not all too different to being a woman in any particular moment. From my experience, and I work deeply with both men and with women, and I've been on so many deep journeys in communities of people as well. And whilst the cultural constructions of what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman means that we tend to view one another quite differently and tend to interpret things through those enculturated lenses, the actual experience from one moment to another of whether I am present or whether I am absent, whether I am feeling or whether I am defensive, whether I'm open or contracted, these are things that we all experience. Someone asked me the other day, I was talking with you, and I was like, oh, look, it says the first question is, what is great about being a man? The first thing that came to mind was, what's great about being a man is being inside of a woman.
Well, you know what, I've heard that before. I actually really like that answer.
And that is one experience that I can say is decidedly a man's experience, is the experience of what it is to meet woman in a physical sense, in energetic sense, and so on. I can say historically what has been great about being a man has been decided advantages in terms of life choices, in terms of authority. These things are from the past, and we might still see them reflected in various ways today, such as in income brackets, inside of the proportion of people who have positions of power, and so on and so forth. But for me, if I was going to say what is great about being a man in a tangible sense, I could say I really enjoy in my body that there is a sense of spring, a sense of power, a sense of I can project myself through the world in a way where if I imagine a woman walking through the world, and I can feel that there is some kind of side-to-side sensuality that is taking place, for a man, I feel I enjoy that linearity, which is kind of part of the biological entity of being a relatively hipless human compared to a woman. But other than these kinds of elements of the experiences which are uniquely male, in terms of the sexual experiences, the upper body strength kind of comparative elements, the spring and so on, a lot of the rest of it is around cultural constructs to me. And I would say that a big part of what I've loved about being a man has been deconstructing what my expectations around myself and other men have been, and learning instead to be a whole human, to be a feeling present entity, and to be able to transcend those things that I've either learned from others or imposed upon myself around what it means to be a man.
Well, this is a very interesting question about deconstructing what is a man. I would like to ask you a little bit more about that, but I still want to come back to the question about men being in a woman. That's one that I would like to explore as well. So about the deconstruction, when you work with men and when you worked with yourself as well, what is it that you wanted to shed or did, or what the work that you have done?
Sure. Okay, so let me start when, and I'll be brief, but I'm going to say, let me start when I was a child. And so I was born, my name is Cairo Rha. I was born Ra. I was then downgraded from a sun god to a city within the first few weeks of my life. And so then I went from being Ra to being Cairo. These days, my name is Cairo Rha because my wife liked the name Ra. Anyway, that is just a way of saying I was part of a hippie community from the get-go. Okay. And so I grew up being surrounded by an alternative kind of culture. Yet, in terms of the way that I took on what it meant for me to be a happy child with aspirations and things that I wanted to go towards, I was all what you would call prototypical stereotype male, in as much as I wanted to be a football star. I was all about sport. I was really into maths. I was very much a kind of left brainer, other than the kind of a creative storytelling kind of component to who I was as a person. Now, I had a significant shift in my adolescent years where I really started to fall in love with theatre and acting. And this started to bring up this enjoyment of self-expression and self-exposure. And that, however, this didn't work out well in terms of my mental and emotional health and well-being. And by the time I was in my young adult years, I was in the space of like self-harm and was very much in the cave of shame. What was significant for me in terms of breaking certain cycles inside of myself, which really applies to deconstructing what we might talk about as being the stereotypical kind of patterns of being a man. Particularly, I'll talk about being a man in Australia. And this was when I kind of came out of my shell at 21 and started being a part of community practice, community spiritual practice, started to do ceremonies such as Sweat Lodge and various other communicative kinds of ceremonies that brought me together with others. I had this profound experience, which was in Sweat Lodge, in which I was surrounded by a group of around 20 other men, of whom I was, I believe, the youngest there. And I broke down and shed light on my inner frailties, on my deep shames, on my emotional interior. I let it all flood out. And like I cried so deeply down onto the earth. I cried my soul out. And I came out on the other side and I had man after man come up to me and say, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your heart. Thank you for being completely unguarded. Thank you for showing yourself completely. And what happened for me was, in the light of this respect, this affirmation, this support and acknowledgement, encouragement that came from other men, older than me as well, which was significant to me. In light of all that positive feedback that came to me, it kind of shifted something inside of me around going, okay, I can show up with any aspect of me, express any aspect of me, and it can be a gift, which was a significant moment in time for me to see that I could conduct myself in a new way, a way where I live with my heart being not just kept inside of myself and hidden from people other than my closest friends or that one chosen person in my life, my intimate partner, but rather it could be the way that I could connect with others and with the world. And that led me to living with an increasing level of transparency. I have a model that I gained in working with a particular client around communication, which we call HOT, and it's honest, open, and transparent. And this mode, this way of being, it didn't mean that suddenly my life was transformed and I was happy every day and I only looked at myself in the mirror and went, oh, wow, I love you, Cairo. Not at all. The challenges of life continued to come deep and thick and fast. However, this shift inside of me meant that I started to occur differently for others. And the way that I would say that I had deconstructed, or I had let go of guarding my emotional interior. And with that letting go of guarding my emotional interior from the world at large to a significant degree, I started to occur as a place where people saw there was permission. There was permission to be transparent. And this is one of the significant things I think needs to be deconstructed for most men. And that is that which we feel can also be shared. That which we know within can also be seen without. And that is our strength, not our weakness. To be able to be transparent is a sign of our courage, not a sign of frailty. And so that is kind of the essence of what I'm talking about there, Anastasia.
And do you help men that you work with to do the same?
Yeah, of course. In a variety of ways. One of the things that I really believe is of central importance for our awakening, for showing up in the best way possible in life, is communication, conscious communication. And fortunately, there's been many people over time who have really delved deeply into core principles of communication. And it continues to mystify me that the principles of communication are not things which are taught explicitly inside of families or schools growing up. So most of us grow up and we end up becoming adults and still feeling like we have something like a sock in our throat between our heart and our mouth. We can't bridge the gap between that which we feel and experience and that which comes out of us, nor can many of us still our mind enough to be able to hear and listen in a deep way in which we can really connect to what others are sharing. But with many men, but it's the same with women. This is why I said at the start that there's much more that unites us than divides us in terms of our experience of life. So a deep part of, or a significant aspect of the work that I often do with people is inside of the interpersonal domain. And it's around going, okay, so share with me what's going on in this relationship. If you could say anything, what is it that you would like to share? How could you share that whilst taking the judgment out, such as a la NVC or nonviolent communication? You can essentially report on your interior, sharing what has happened, how you feel, what the needs or values are that are underneath that, and what specific requests you have of others or intentions you want to share with them about how you want to conduct yourself going forward. So this aspect of bridging the gap between one's interior and the way we show up is a big part of the work that many people need to go through. The good news is it's actually so much easier than people imagine. And everybody's hungry for truth. Everybody's hungry for truth. So people are so scared and will live decades of their lives through to death without speaking things because they're afraid of the discomfort of communicating certain things that are difficult for them to communicate. So instead, they opt for the discomfort of not communicating. So they avoid discomfort by ensuring discomfort.
Yeah.
Which to me is a terrible irony, because if we go through the discomfort of 5 seconds sometimes of speaking that which needs to be said, we
Yeah.
open up a new world of honesty, and in the light of truth, then love can actually occur, because we know when we are thinking something different to what we say, then it's very hard for us to have a clear channel for love to occur.
Yes, I agree with you completely. It seems like it's still the inner world, even though this new generation, and we are part of that new generation, we know so much about our inner world and the importance of it, and like importance of feelings, meditations, dropping in. That still the outer world is so much more important to people. They as long as you like outside you say those right things, or you don't like shake the boat, or you just keep silent, but then whatever hell is happening inside, all those emotions or numbness or regrets or pain, because you don't see it, you just bottle them up inside of yourself. So people go through a lot of trauma inside, and they're willing to go through that as long as outside is still okay. It looks okay, it feels okay, they say right things, they don't confront, or they don't say the truth, or just refrain from the communication, or cut the ties with people that they don't want to like resolve situations. But it doesn't go anywhere, it's still inside of you. So and just working with emotional traumas, as a practitioner, I can feel it, I can see it. So it's my biggest wish, I guess, is that our inner world becomes just as important, or even more important, than outside world. That our what we show up is outside, what we say is outside, that we actually become a full reflection of our inner world. And that's transparency that you're talking about, and that will make our world so much easier and better place to live, because we would be able to move through so much stuff, and so much shit, and so much trauma, and so much disagreement so much faster, if it's not bottled up inside.
Yes.
I do want to speak about this.
From what you just said there.
Yes.
Can I speak back just for a moment to what you've said there? One of the reasons why I love coaching, and why I love the work that we do, the teaching work that we do as well, is because we are so very action oriented. I really agree with you that it's so important for us to really step deeply. And excuse me for one moment, I'm not sure if it's on your side or my side that there's a series of bombs going from Facebook, but I'm turning that off. So one of the things that I've experienced very much, I told you before, I came from an alternative community kind of growing up, and then by the time I was 18, I was living on the north coast of New South Wales, and then that was a core part of my life for however long thereafter. And I was around so many people, including myself, who could share with you very deeply about their interior, and could unpack the layers of the onion through to their generational inheritance, through to what was going on with each of their particular stories, all these chapters inside of the larger novel of their life. Yet their ability to step out of that book of their own autobiography and come into the common biography, the common story of our relationships and our place in the world, was often still quite limited. Sometimes I think that people can end up spending so much time looking down at their navel, going, oh, what's going on down here? What's happened? How did I become who I've become? What's fed into me through this horizon down here, that they can forget to go, let me translate what it is that I'm learning about myself. Let me translate this awareness Let me translate all of these things, these insights that I'm having about myself, into my relationships, into my work, into my place in my community, into my society. And so I'm kind of putting forward that, yes, we need to do the inner work, because as we are is as we act.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as we do this inner work, if we don't take the actions that go along with it, we can spin our wheels forever inside of the bog of our own mess, inside of the bog of our own mind. And my challenge and invitation to people is to take the yoga of union with God and turn it into that karma yoga of action, to turn it into what is being asked of me. And this is a real litmus test for our attainment, because it's all very well and good to be enlightened in one's own cave.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different thing to come out with that candle and see if you can keep that flame burning bright whilst the winds of life come at you in the form of a conversation, in the form of an aspiration that you're acting on, and so forth. So to me, a big part of what I focus on for myself and with others is, yes, go within, and also then build that bridge so that you're taking that which is within and bringing it in very concrete ways to your relationships, to your work, to the way you show up inside of your everyday life.
Yes. I can totally agree and relate to that. It's like, it's very easy to be enlightened when you just kind of like in the forest and the nature and the beautiful. If you want to see if you're enlightened, go and spend Christmas with your parents.
Or that's a good analogy.
Or get into a relationship, and then you will see whatever comes out.
Yes.
And and how enlightened you are, definitely. And or pursue your purpose, and then you will stumble upon so many own like resistance and fears and insecurities. And I can totally relate to that, because when I moved from a paid job into being a full-time practitioner, oh my god, I went through hell and fire with my own emotions and doubts and worries and insecurities, and you just name it. And all the internal work, all the inner work, all the enlightenment had to bring out the big guns and to push through that.
Indeed. So you wanted to go back to another question before?
Yes, men and women, because it's interesting. You're not the first one to say that what I like about being a man is loving women, being inside a woman, being attracted to women, feel a woman. And I know why I want to stop there, because I know it will trigger some women. It definitely will, because men have a label and perception of being a predator, that men just want sex, men just want to take advantage, they just want to sleep and go away, because they always just want sex. But for me personally, I know that there is so much more underneath that, first of all, for a man, and in what it means for men, what the lovemaking means, what sex means for them. It's so much more, so much deeper. Would you be able to share a little bit about that?
About lovemaking?
About connecting to a woman, being a man and connecting to a woman, being with a woman, diving deep into a woman, love making to a woman, like all of the above, or any of those.
So let's start with lovemaking is something which is taking place all of the time. It's not. It's obviously, we talk about lovemaking as being the act of actually being there, body to body, and affection is expressed from each body to the other, that shared space with one another. Yet I'm 12 years deep almost into my relationship, been married for over 10 years now. And I know that the deepest part of love for me is companionship. And yes, I celebrated. And hopefully I didn't lose a bunch of people at the start by saying, what I love about being a man is being inside of a woman. Because what I really say is that what I love is this ongoing dance which is taking place. And I experience, as you spoke to before, my attraction towards my woman. I also experience attraction towards women here, there, and everywhere. And I believe that attraction is entirely innocent. It is a biological process which naturally occurs inside of us as one entity sees another and recognizes inside of that the health, vitality, radiance, and beauty which is inside of that other person. And it enlivens and awakens some feeling of, I am life, that is life. Together we could create life. Together we can make more life occur. Now, what I love about being a man in particular is I look at women and I look at my wife, who I'm with in so many ways. We are partners, we are co-parents, we are business partners, we share our lives so richly and deeply with one another. And so let me talk about Kaylin as a representative of the feminine, because she embodies it so beautifully. And she is juicy. She is like, I can squish her. I can feel that tenderness that is there inside of her, the receptivity. And for me, you talked before about that predator element. And I could talk about being a conscious hunter. I could talk about being what it is to be like looking for how I can enter into that beauty, how I can envelop that beauty, how I can, in some ways, yes, just appreciate, but then flood into in various ways through my presence, through the quality of touch. And for me, I can look at her and, this is clumsy in a certain sense, but I can use metaphors of saying she to me is like a juicy mango. She is sweet. She is juicy. She is delicious. She has that element that if I hold her and I am present inside of the way that I am experiencing that moment, it could be like she overflows and I get the beauty of being bathed in her spirit. So for me, yes, I do love being inside of my woman, and I've very much enjoyed being with my sexual partners inside of the act of lovemaking, as we would commonly talk about it. But the act of lovemaking is an ongoing process. I'll refer to something that I learned from David Data many years ago, which I really enjoyed. And that was, use the energy that you experience as your inspiration. And so I walk through life, and I'm very fortunate to have really deep relationships, really honest, authentic relationships with many beautiful women. And I believe partly to do with who I am, partly to do with being the non-threatening man who has children and a wife that I'm deeply in love with, and so on. There is a real space of safety that women have fed back to me, and that they feel safe with me, and they can show up with the deepest parts of who they are. Now, I would be a liar if I was to say that I don't at times experience surges of attraction that go through me.
Yes.
But as I was alluding to earlier, for me, the practice inside of that is not to fixate. It's not about conquest. It's not about owning. It's not about having that particular person. It's about allowing their essence, allowing their spirit, the way they are in that moment with me, to come through and enlighten, activate me. And if I can do that in a good way, I have to say, people might say, oh, men just want to have sex and they want to jump from this to that. That's so complicated. That is so energy burning. For some people, I won't say it's not great for those people who want it. I won't say I didn't have great times in my life when I was a free agent, so to speak, being able to be with somebody here and then thank you very much and now I'm here. and I did my best to maintain transparency about where I was at. But when
Mm.
I chose to be with one woman and really chose it, like chose it not just in my mind, but chose it in my cells and felt, right, this is who I am, life became so much more simple. Because then I knew that there was no more of testing. Does this person like me in this way? Oh, I hope that they receive my energy and they like it. Is there a way that I can show up where they will really yield their deepest, even their body over to the connection with me, etc.? All that stuff was out the window. Now it was just, let me look and let me see. And if there was a piece of advice that I could have for men who are out there,
Yes.
and in relation to how they can connect deeply with a woman, it is to look to see. Really be aware of when we are looking. Are you looking from a space of whether you're getting the affirmation you want in relation to your desire related to this particular person?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you looking to truly see? Are you paying attention to the subtleties, to the shifts, to the moment by moment flow that you're experiencing with this person? Because if you are not, that is objectification. And in the moment that we have objectified somebody, especially when we are there with them, we have killed them. We have killed them off from being a living, flowing person who moment by moment, just like you, is having an interior experience of life. And if we're not paying attention to that person's interior, if we are rather fixating on the exterior, we are missing out on the deepest of the beauties. And on top of that, we are solidifying a potential fear complex inside the other person of not being seen. We are potentially reducing that person that we are looking at to something much less, much less than who they are. And that is the antithesis of love. So because that's what we all really want, we all really want to experience love. And love asks us presence, because love is connection. My wife and I, we have studied love. We've interviewed people across the planet about the nature of love and how we can nurture love. What is love? And the common theme, whether we've talked to activists, spiritual teachers, religious leaders, psychologists, psychotherapists, and so on, is that love is connection. And so for us to actually really experience what we're looking for, which is that true reality of infinite connection, which is what is truly so, we need to be present. And for us to be present, we must be present to something deeper than our own desire. Our desire is taking place in a much larger field. And so, yeah, this is kind of my answer to you around what am I talking about when you say, what does it mean to be inside of a woman, or what does this mean in terms of the dance of intimacy? It's about, yes, my desire is part of a much broader picture, and can I be present to my interior and your interior and the space that we are living in and co-creating together? And if I can do so, magical things happen. And last thing I have to say, and each to their own, but for me, year on year, the further I can go in a journey with a particular chosen person, the more that is revealed, the more that is known, the deeper the unity that I get to experience, because it sits on top of, or it sits in amongst all that we have shared over time. So I say each to their own, but personally, for myself at least, I'm a real advocate for committed intimacy, because it's inside of committed intimacy that the deepest of reveals, the deepest of truths, the deepest of realities can be unveiled in a very beautiful way.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. Absolutely. I think it was just right there was a very magical teaching for men, as like lots of men can get something very valuable out of that. And also for women, is if you see that in a man, if you see men looking at you like that, the way you described, seeing your light, seeing your flow, seeing your aliveness. Yes, so that's the man worth paying attention to. And
Mm.
also, what men do not realize, that as soon as they switch on objectification, as soon as they see a woman
Mm.
as an object, that it will come back straight away with emasculation, because women have that as this very strong tool to cut that aliveness away from a man as well. They just go like emasculate in a different way, with words, with actions, with energy.
Mm.
So there's like cuts from the both sides. No one wins. Life is
Mm.
horrible. Opposite sex is a nightmare. Um, so
Can I just say one thing that I just recognized that I didn't speak to, is that a woman and a man on both sides, but let me just talk for a woman at this moment.
mhm.
Let me, as a man, talk for a woman. But a woman also has the power and capacity to be able to share that experience in real time and call the man to attention and ask perhaps a question such as, "Are you seeing me?" Or invite. I invite you to see me very deeply. I invite you to breathe deeply with me right now, as could a man, as could a man on the other side. But there is this propensity or this tendency for people to have a reaction to a moment. And remember, we are all living from a context which is infinitely mysterious. And so a man may be looking at a woman, in this instance, we've been talking about that, and this is a common occurrence, and seeing her through the lens of his desire, but not seeing her in her experience of life in that moment. And in a certain sense, it's innocent again, because that is what he's learnt, that is what he's downloaded, that is what is being put into him by his culture, by his infinite number of experiences over time that has told him this is the way life works. You need to guard your heart and try and get what you can, or whatever those kinds of memes are that are living through him. But in a single moment of truthful, honest communication, we can cut through thousands of years of conditioning and literally invite somebody into another experience of life by simply saying words to the effect of, "I want to invite us right now, as we're looking at each other, to also feel our bodies and breathe, so that we can let down our guards and really connect with one another." Now, that took me 15 seconds to say, but 98%, 99% of people will have never heard an invitation like that.
Yeah, yeah. I
It was
completely
15
agree.
seconds of breath. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I completely agree with, and I like that you're addressing women, because um, we need to take responsibility. I feel like we as women need to take responsibility and stepping into our power. It's not about like growing balls and like matching the masculine on the masculine energy level, but rather, as what you're saying, call out that part of them that is aware and present. So that's where the female power is, stepping out of the victim and constantly reminding yourself, oh, we've been suppressed for thousands of years, so I'm going to continue being victim, and I'm going to continue being like resenting, or stepping out of the little girl, stepping out of the or princess, powerless or demanding, and stepping into that queen and requesting, saying, I am calling out for
Yes.
you to treat me in a certain way and meet my standards, because my standards for myself are high. I see myself, I love myself, I appreciate myself, I see my own beauty, my self-worth is high, and that's what I require from you. And if you're not, here we go. The door is over there.
And so I would agree with that. Inside of the space of intimacy and connection, there's a conversation which could be like, you're there and you're talking with each other about your relationship and what you desire, and then there is different qualities that may emerge inside of that. But in the space of communion, intimacy, the space where we're actually in practice of that, the first doorway to go through is to connect to oneself in the way that we would like another to connect to us, so that then we are radiating out the energy, the attitude, the embodied feeling of that which we are inviting. Because if we look at somebody and say, okay, so I want you to drop it and deepen and look at me and really feel me right now, but we are doing it with like an aspect where we are not making ourselves available to ourselves, let alone to them, then there is no way that the person is going to have a good chance to be able to connect to us in the way that we want to. The first time my wife and I did an eye-gazing meditation, almost 12 years ago, we came out of it on the other side, and I had not had a quality of presence inside of that had landed as being what we could call soft, warm, kind, tender. I had been more inside of my head, I think, at various times inside of our eye gazing. And so she felt very uncertain about whether she wanted to do that again. And we went on to do it again with one another. And what we recognized was we are each befriending ourselves as we befriend one another. So then if we can make requests from a space where whether you look at me in that way or not, I'm going to relate to myself in this way. So if I'm relating to myself in that way in this moment, that is already the biggest part of the victory of life taken care of right now, because intimacy is taking place here and now with me. Then I invite you into this intimacy with me. And then if we can at the same time as that not react when the other person isn't present, what Kaylin and I learned to do with one another is to hold space for ourselves and each other when the other person is present and when they are absent. Accept the other person when they are judging you, and you will see some alchemy take place. Yeah, because what happens
that's a whole new level.
that is the deeper level of being able to go, wait a second. Just because this person in this moment is evidently distracted and looking at me with harshness inside of their eyes, that does not mean that I need to double down on that and do the same thing to them. Because if yes, it could work. Fuck you, motherfucker. Come back to presence with me here. And that could be the fierceness that is needed in that moment. I won't deny that that could be a medicine. But I will say that if we judge the judge, we are just doing the same thing. It's just that we've got another layer of clothing on top. And the way that we can cut that is to be able to be there with kind eyes to ourselves and another, such that when they come out of their trance and they look and they see that you are still looking with the same quality of benevolence and kindness, even though they went into a space that could be shameful, then I can just report back for me, God, my heart just went to another level with my wife when I recognized that she was still loving me even when I wasn't loving myself or wasn't loving her. I went, wait a second, she is loving me unconditionally. And then I went, I can let go, because if she loves me, even if I'm good or even if I'm bad, if you want to use those kinds of labels, then I can really relax. I can relax to a deeper level. I don't need to prove something to her. I can just be.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a whole new level. And I can totally relate to that.
Yeah, I'm glad you can. I'm glad you can.
Goodness. We just have a few more minutes for a couple of more questions. And Cairo, what is your definition of an honorable man?
Okay, so for me to be an honorable man, you need to know what you want to honor. So it starts with actually questioning what are your principles. And this is inside of our fragmented modern world, this postmodern space that we come into, where this is one perspective, here's another perspective, here's another perspective. We're not growing up, most of us, with a code of conduct from our religion, from our set cultural spirituality, as many humans have throughout history. So this first process of actually creating an honor code is actually, for me, that entry level for us to be able to go, okay, what does honor mean for me? What does it look like? And then it's about habitualizing and enacting those principles, having clear standards around that. Say, for example, part of my honor code is honesty. And so then I go, okay, so what does honesty mean? Where's the gray areas that I have in relation to honesty? Because we might go, oh, well, I can be honest with these people in these circumstances, but not with my parents, etc. But for me, I'm like, no, the principle is honesty. And now I need to set my standards. And so my standard is to be non-deceptive and to represent truth to the best of my abilities. So what that means, taking that a bit further, is yes, I can represent truth to the best of my abilities, but I could also edit things out so that I deceive somebody in terms of where I stand in relation to something. I could be honest with the things I do say and not share a bunch of other things that I think about this situation or that are other factors in a circumstance or whatever. But that's deceptive. That's deceptive. That's like, let me just show you the ice cream and not give you the Chinese medicine. You know, there is a full complexity, or there is a full picture that, if I was to be truly honest, may need to be conveyed. And so for me now, to be a man of honor means for me to be honest in such a way that I go, yes, I represented things to the best of my abilities. And I was also transparent. I didn't try to load the dice so that I got my outcome without giving somebody everything that they would need to know to be able to make an informed choice in this situation. So that's just one example. But the idea is like a knight of the round table or like a samurai with their Bushido code, is for you to personally set for yourself what are the principles that you want to uphold, and then in relation to those things that you value, those qualities of being, those codes of conduct, have standards that are explicit so that you can say, oh, okay, integrity to me is important. And that's a key element, I would say, of being a man of honor, is to have integrity. And say, for example, that means with one's word, the standard I would have there is you uphold your word or update your word in real time to the best of your ability. You know, so that's clear. So now I'm going, oh, do I have integrity at the moment? Well, let me look at my relationships. Am I honoring each of the things that I said that I would do in each of these relationships? If I haven't, I need to update my word. I need to perhaps apologize to somebody, recognize that I'm either going to break my word due to unforeseen circumstances, or that I already have, or whatever the case may be. But the theme of my refrain here is, one, look at what principles you want to actually uphold. Two, define your standards. Three, enact your standards.
Beautiful. That's very clear. It's right on the money. Thank you.
Yeah.
And last question, can you share about yourself? Like, how have you changed through your 20s, through your 30s? How have your needs changed, your relationship with the world, with women, with your standards, with your own, the principles that you mentioned?
Okay. That's a very rich question, and I'm going to try to honor it whilst being succinct. What I can say is that my level of fear has gone down over time. And the pace, even though I don't know how I'm occurring to you watching, or to you, Anastasia, right now, and I know that I can have a bit of a buzz to my system. So I am somebody who can set sail on with flighty enthusiasm. And so I've got a lot of energy, and I might still occur to some people as having a fast ticker. But I can tell you, I've slowed down so much from when I was young, when I was 20. I'm 40 now, so it's half a life ago. And I think I was scrambling to make sense of myself. I was trying to think my way out of thought. I was looking for the approval of others because I felt so ashamed of myself in various ways. I felt ashamed of my judgment of myself. I felt ashamed of my judgment of others. I felt ashamed of not being a success in the way that I thought that I was meant to be in the eyes of my society. I looked at so many things, and there was a taste of inadequacy in my mouth. And so there was a real striving and this idea that I was a problem that needed to be fixed.
Mm.
And so I was looking for approval from others. And then I recognized that the only approval that really mattered and had any substance in my 24-hour-a-day living experience of life was my own approval. And throughout my 30s, I really saw a distinct shift from my 20s, trying to prove myself to others, to trying to prove myself to myself, trying to show, oh, there you are, Cairo. You are upholding that which you're wanting to uphold. You are you are your own judge and jury here, and that is the most important relationship, you to you. And that was at least a shift. There's still, still various challenges, but I made some significant shifts. Literally at the age of 30, if you wanted to look at some key things, within 3 months of turning 30 or 4 months of turning 30, I bought a house, got married, and started a new career. The only thing I didn't have was get somebody pregnant and have the children come on board as well. But I stepped things up in terms of my levels of responsibility. And I would say that has been the consistent theme, is there's been an expansion in both my responsibility and my willingness to take responsibility for expanding circles of influence inside of my life. And that is where I've come to now. So now I have people who are flying from around the world to come and be with me and learn things from me, because they're seeing some level of integration. And I know that I'm a deeply flawed person. I know that I'm still, from one moment to another, either in a deep space of wisdom and awareness, or in a fractured space of judgment and mess or whatever. And so I'm still an ongoing learner. One of the other questions that you'd sent through to me is, what do I like about myself? And it's that I recognize that I can come back to beginner's mindset again and again and again, and keep on learning new things and keep on questioning what I think I know, so that I can meet life with presence. And that is probably the key shift that has taken place for me over time, is that I feel more relaxed inside of my presence, more comfortable in my mind, more comfortable in my body, more comfortable in my place in the world. And sometimes I talk to people who are going, how can I get to a place of greater equanimity, or greater self-love, or greater feeling of connection and satisfaction inside of life? And I'd say all of us have equal access to it in any moment, yet the process of moving from one stage of life to another can sometimes be very gradual, imperceptibly creeping from one space into another. And I read some years ago that patience is the only virtue, because it's only in the absence of patience that we need the others. And I would say that for me, that has been a big shift for me as well, is just accepting what is right now and having the patience that this too shall pass. Next moment, let things unfold in their own time. And with that acceptance, with that patience, with that allowing, everything that is okay, and everything that wants to come into being is given the perfect space to be allowed to do so. So yeah, I would say that decrease in mania, increase in patience, slowing down, and a gradual ripening, so that I feel more relaxed in my place with myself and life.
Beautiful. That's a lot of wisdom right there. Thank you so much for sharing today, and I'm sure lots of women and men will appreciate it, because we're all going through our own levels of development, our own levels of self-awareness, and dealing with whatever we've got to deal with. And all I can say is just I see so much beauty in you, and so much love for humanity, love for everyone, love for yourself, love for your beloved. It's so magical to see, and I guess that's the main thing that I want to share is with people, is that goodness, you know, beauty and goodness and the kindness of the heart in men, especially because yeah, if we just start seeing that beauty, all of us, women and men and women, this whole world is going to be a different place. Different place. Yeah.
I really agree with you, and really want to affirm just what you're saying there, that how we look actually creates the world we experience. And I want to thank you for honoring me by asking me a variety of wonderful questions, and for the level of presence that you've brought to this conversation, and for your earnest quest to be able to find out and give voice to and provide a platform for people to be able to share their experience of life in honor of love, in honor of bringing forth our best relations with ourselves and others. It's a beautiful thing that you're up to here. And the way you're conducting yourself inside of it as well, I felt entirely safe, entirely received, and entirely honored. And so I thank you so much for our time here together today.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. Bye.